So when it comes to how a realist hero rebuilds the kingdom, I really think that this most recent episode was one of the most kind of like impactful episodes in quite a while, just because of the seriousness of what was going on, right? You had Duke Carmine finally having to atone for the decisions that he ultimately made. And those decisions that he made were in the benefit of the elf reading kingdom, but because of the way that he decided to go about making those decisions, kind of getting all of the corrupt nobles, but including himself in that section, that subsection of corrupt nobles, he then has to be treated as those corrupt nobles did. Now, what Soma ended up doing was reaching out with the metaphorical hand and saying, hey, here's this potion. Take this potion and it'll basically kill you. That way you do not have to be publicly executed in front of a bunch of people, and you're viewed as this criminal of the kingdom. He's like, you will be tainting your name and your legacy. And the reality is, you did something very special and really awesome for the kingdom, but he's just not able to kind of convey that message out because everything that Duke Carmine ended up doing was in secrecy, and that is really what kind of changed the whole game in a sense. Now, the first half of the episode is really Soma sitting down and having this one-on-one conversation with Duke Carmine, and I was really into this conversation because obviously Leisha kind of came up the most because of the way Leisha viewed Duke Carmine. You know, she was working under him. He's like a father figure to her. And, you know, Soma's biggest frustration, in a sense that you could say, was the fact that he was going to have to move forward with making this decision and getting rid of Duke Carmine, essentially. But the reason he has to do that is because of him being associated with those corrupt nobles. And he was frustrated as, like, you know, why didn't they look at any other different avenue? Why didn't they travel down any other avenue to try and get rid of these nobles, but do it in a way to where Duke Carmine didn't have to sully his name, and to where he ultimately didn't have to meet his demise at the end of everything, like he ended up having to do here in this specific situation. And the biggest thing in Soma's head is not, at the end of the day, he holds a very heavy weight on himself for having to go through and take people's lives. But the other thing is how this was emotionally going to affect his lady, right? He loves Leisha. He knows what she means to him, and she means the world to him. And he says it to Duke Carmine that she's my family, and anybody comes after my family, I'm gonna take care of them. So he makes that very evident, and he makes that, you know, very clear to Duke Carmine, which, you know, puts Duke Carmine, you know, in a peace of mind. So when he ends up ending it, he does it with that peace of mind of what's going to happen next and whose hands he's leaving in the kingdom. But I just thought that was just such a serious moment, and I loved the tonality and the tone switch that ended up occurring this episode of how a realist hero rebuilt the kingdom. And it's just ever so clear of all the weight that is really being put on Soma, as he's this king and he's this leader. And he said that he had to basically execute and publicly kill 3 generations of the corrupt noble's family, and he was trying to find a better solution for, like, the children that were 13 and under, on what they could do for them. And it's just such bullshit that he couldn't revise the laws in a way to make that situation happen. Now, Duke Carmine obviously does convey that, hey, you know, the nature of people is that if you leave them alive, there's a chance that they're going to come after you because of the actions that you took. You killed their family, whether it was their family that actually ended up being the villains in that story. The point is that you're now the villain for killing off my family. So he makes that very apparent too. He had to make these hard and wise decisions, because although 1 or 2 may not end up being corrupt, you could have the other 80 or 90% in that same family actually being corrupt. It's just really hard to know. So he's like, these are just the decisions that you have to make as a king. The other thing that I absolutely adore about the anime is we had this serious tone, and obviously he had to go in and kill Gorg, or George. I don't know how you spell it. I'm gonna say Gorg. he had to kill Gorg. So he never was able to reap the benefits of working with him and him being a general, and him being able to lead certain portions of the kingdom. But then the anime takes a tone switch, which I'll get to in a minute. Also, his second in command, he has some kind of ninjas or something, kind of like investigating the elf reading kingdom, which I want to see more about what that ends up. I want to see more about what fruit that bears, whether he's friend or foe. And I'm pretty sure he's very close to SOUMA, so I want to say he's friend, not foe. But I want to see what strings are being pulled behind the scenes, even behind SOUMA's back, by the previous king and queen. And then what ends up happening with the princess in Van, as well as I think the princess of Van will end up coming into SOUMA's house. You all know what I mean by that. Okay, now moving on. Then it has a complete tone switch, right? Then we have SOUMA acknowledging all the people who assisted during the during the invasion of Amadonia and all that, and the elf people. So the elf people ask that Alicia gets taken into his care, in the hand of marriage. I was like, oh my god. Which he accepts. Aisha, I'm sorry. Aisha gets accepted into his home as his second wife or second queen. And she's also the king's guard, so she now has to protect him and be his lover boo. And he accepts it because Lisha ends up being like, it's okay. You're going to have to take a lot of wives as you are king. You might have to take other princesses into your care. There might be a third, a fourth, a fifth, an eighth queen that ends up happening. I just got to be main B. I got to be number one. I got to be the first queen. So he takes in Lisha. And then he has the songstress, but he denies momentarily. But his harem begins forming around him, which is interesting as well. But I love the tone switch that the anime had towards the end. Overall, every time I watch this anime, I love this anime. It is awesome. The way that they dive really deep into the inner workings of SOUMA's mind and what they're trying to convey are always top-notch and really good, and I always really appreciate that. Overall, another fantastic episode in the tool belt that is How Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom. Really enjoyable, and I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Thank you for being here for another week for How Realist Hero Rebuilt the Kingdom. I'm going to see all you guys next week for the next episode. Next episode is episode number 18. Holy crap. Episode number 18 next week, so I'll see you guys that for episode number 18. My friends, drop a like and a sub before you guys dip out, and I'll see you guys next week. Deuces.